Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we're going to be discussing the 1972 horror comedy exploitation film of 1972, The Thing with Two Heads, starring Ray Milland and Rosie Greer. Good times. For those of you guys just joining us for the first time, we're like a book club where each week I'll post on the internet, on Facebook, on Twitter what movie we'll be discussing, and you can send in your questions, comments, favorite scenes, all sorts of good stuff. You can reach us at KD9575 at Twitter. You can also like by clicking the like button on Facebook, the original B Movie Club, not to be confused with all those imitators. You can also reach me at our page on YouTube, which is also KD9575, the B Movie Club. So please, come on board, subscribe, like the page, and spread the word. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and share all of our postings on your timeline. Tell a friend. The more the merrier. The Thing with Two Heads. I actually had a bunch of people post things on Facebook this week telling me how much they love it. Karen particularly said that show used to give her nightmares growing up. And Crystal posted that it's one of her favorite movies, and she actually owns it on DVD. Now that's devotion, man. That's serious, serious devotion. The Thing with Two Heads. In this movie, you have like this withered old doctor who's an expert in transplantation surgeries, but sadly his body is kind of growing more infirm. He has some kind of disorder that gives him tremors or something, but it's also terminal, so he's going to die at any moment. So now he has to risk everything for one last transplant. Something else we learn about this doctor fairly early. He runs this transplant clinic in Los Angeles, and he hires a new doctor from Minneapolis sight unseen. The conflict comes when this new doctor is African American. And that's when we realize the old withered doctor is also a total racist on top of everything else. So he tries to send that doctor packing for no other reason, just because of his race. So we're not supposed to like this old withered guy. And we don't. He's not a very nice person, as you might imagine. So now his top assistant comes in, and he reveals his plan to this top assistant about how he's been working on a new type of transplantation, not just hearts or kidneys or things like that. Now, the head. Earlier in the movie, we see one of his experiments gone horribly wrong. He had a two-headed gorilla in his garage who escapes and runs around South Central. It is crazy. You think if you had a two-headed gorilla, you'd have better security precautions. Clearly not an issue in this in his mansion, I guess. They managed to get him back, and basically the plan is you have a healthy gorilla, you take the head off another gorilla, attach it about here. It takes about a month for the new head to assert dominance over the body. And when it does that, then you chop off the old head. So it's a transplantation. I don't know what they do with the old head. I don't know if there's a special bin next to the recycling that you can put it out for the garbage man. I'm not sure how it works. But that was his plan. So he tells his top assistant, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to be dead any moment. I need you to come in and find me a body. Are there any... So they start scouring hospitals. Are there any terminal patients whose bodies are healthy? Have there been any car accidents? Any issues like that? Anybody who's brain dead that we can just take their body? No. Nothing that will fit their needs. So they pull some strings and they go to the prison system. Are there any people on death row that are willing to donate their bodies to science? We won't tell them exactly what they're donating it for, but just that they'll get a 30-day reprieve from their execution, at which point, at the end of the experiment, they'll still be dead, but at least they'll go to help humanity, or so they think. Still nothing. So, very sad. Now the old withered doctor goes into a coma, and his top assistant has to make a decision. At the 11th hour, a guy by the name of Jack Moss is to be executed. And at this moment, he decides, you know what? I'll volunteer. You can use me for science. Jack Moss, he was convicted of murder of police officers, but we find he may have been wrongly convicted, an innocent man. And as he decides, hey, I'll do it, sign me up for medical experiments, if it goes to help some little girl who needs something, I'll do that. But it'll also give me 30 days. I'll get my legal team and my girlfriend to track down the evidence we need to clear my name, or so he thinks. The wrinkle in this story is Jack Moss is played by former Rams defensive tackle Rosie Greer. He's a 6'4", 300-pound African-American man. So that's where it gets kind of interesting, because you have the withered old racist and the big black man. Hilarity ensues. So they go ahead and do this, and while the second in command is preparing Jack Moss for the surgery, he says, they've told you the risks, that in 30 days, you're going to die. And he's, oh, yeah, 30 days, that's all I need to clear my name. So the doctor realizes, something's not quite right here. So, see, the second in command is slightly less unscrupulous than the withered old guy. But, people say things, so he goes ahead and proceeds with the surgery, because they didn't have any other options. He knew the withered old racist wouldn't appreciate being attached to the big African-American, and he knew the big African-American guy wouldn't be too pleased to learn that eventually the plan is to take his head off. So there you go. So they've performed the surgery. The second in command calls back the other doctor from way back when, the African-American doctor who was so wrongly terminated, because he's also an expert in transplant surgery. Doesn't tell him exactly what it is, but just that we need your help with, a little known side effect of all this transplantation stuff is that sometimes the original body will reject certain organs. They need his insight into that. Eventually, Jack Moss wakes up from his sedation, discovers an old white head attached to him right here. The old white head wakes up, realizes he's attached to a big African-American guy. It's like The Odd Couple. It's like All in the Family. Hilarity ensues. Eventually, Jack Moss wakes up, frees himself, takes the African-American doctor hostage, and they're on the run. Cops are chasing him, going on wild chases through the desert. Cars are crashing. They actually at one point jump on the back of a dirt bike, and for some reason, in an attempt to lose the police, go round and around on this motocross track. I'm not sure what that will do. The cops have helicopters, but for some reason they're not very good using them. I don't know what the story is. Eventually they escape. They track down Jack Moss's girlfriend. They kind of go with him and hide under her door as if the cops wouldn't search for them there. I don't know. Anyway, again, we learn more and more that he was basically innocent. It was he had a friend who was involved with something that he shouldn't have been. He had the gun that was used to kill the cops and left it at Jack Moss's house, and he took off. Cops arrested Moss, found the gun, didn't find the other guy. So there you go. He eventually convinces the African-American doctor that we want to get rid of this other head, the evil white head. But at this point, it's been several weeks since the surgery, the white head starts taking control of the body, and he actually beats up the doctor and punches out and knocks out Jack Moss's head. So he's unconscious, and now he's on the run. Eventually, they get him. They remove the head, the white head, and he's just a head now with like tubes coming out going, find me a new body, find me a new body. And that's how it ends. It ends with Jack Moss with his girlfriend and the doctor, they're rolling through town with like Happy Days Are Here Again blasted on the stereo. And that's the end of the movie. There are some unanswered questions. Obviously, Jack Moss is still a fugitive from justice. There is no Deus Ex Machina where somebody shows up and says, "Hey, we've got that witness, you're free." No. Presumably he's still, the cops are still after him, but at least he doesn't have a second head. So I guess you have to take, small victories wherever you can take them. Good times. I found this movie highly entertaining. A little long in the middle. The chase scene seems to take at least 30 minutes, and who knows where they're going. And the cops, it's like, my wife made the point, it's like Enos and Roscoe are chasing them because for some reason, they can't seem to catch them no matter what happens. I mean, there's literally 500 police cars on the road chasing them, and they're in some crazy old beater at one point, and then later they're on a dirt bike. They managed to get away. I noticed that all the police officers were wearing Bakersfield PD uniforms. I'm not sure if they called them in just for this manhunt or what the story is, but I found that interesting. Other things you notice, I could have sworn James Lipton is in this movie. There's one scene where a man who looks suspiciously like James Lipton, from inside the actor's studio, shows up. He's a police officer. He doesn't say anything. I've looked high and low to find evidence of this. Maybe I'm crazy. He was a spitting image of James Lipton. Anyway, like I've said before, Jack Moss was played by Roosevelt Rosie Greer, formerly of the Fearsome Foursome, the LA Rams defensive line, with Deacon Jones, Lamar Lundy, and of course, future actor himself and FTD florist guy, Merlin Olsen. Evidently, he saw the success that Rosie Greer had in such films as The Thing with Two Heads that he said, "Hey, where do I sign up for that?" Of course, he went on to Little House on the Prairie and such things like that. So there you go. Thanks, Rosie. Rosie Greer, also cousin of 1970s icon Pam Grier, who you might remember from such films as Coffee and Foxy Brown. So there was acting in the family, is what I'm trying to say. I posted that it has just the right combination of comedy, horror, and Superfly and Shaft mixed in there, because it's got like a black exploitation kind of feel to it as well. There's a lot of 70s music blaring, so you can't beat it. I saw this movie many, many moons ago, the first time. I swear to God, it was on Elvira, one of those shows. And at the time, it was terrifying. When you're very little and you see a two-headed creature running around, it gives you a moment of pause. Let's just say that. It is streaming instantly on Netflix. If you don't already own a copy, I mean. You can check it out there. It's been on there for quite a while, and it should be on there for quite a while longer. So please, if you have not seen it, it is streaming instantly. Rush out and check it out. On Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 0% rotten. This is the first movie I've done that has a 0% rating. That's just a travesty. It's a total travesty. It's got to be at least into double digits. At least. Okay? Obviously, shockingly enough, not nominated for any Academy Awards. But it was fun nonetheless. Ray Milland was a famous actor of the 50s and 60s. Around the 70s, he started to say, like, well, I'm not getting the same roles that I used to, so I'm going to start doing basically whatever they offer me. Earlier that year, I should say, he also appeared in the movie, the cult horror classic Frogs, where some frogs attack a family. There you go. It's also other Swamp Life. So there you go. He was in that with a young Sam Elliott, who you would not recognize because he has no mustache. Is that the big handlebar mustache you're used to seeing? No? Shocking. Just like Burt Reynolds with no mustache. That's also on Netflix, by the way. You can check that out. Next week, I scoured high and low for an appropriate choice for next week. We're going to be doing the cult classic, the one that started it all, Planet of the Apes, starring Charlton Heston. Here's another guy who did a lot of big movies in the 50s and 60s, Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments. By the 70s, he was like, where do I get my check? Planet of the Apes, Omega Man, Soylent Green, all movies we plan on doing in the B Movie Club, by the way. He was like, whatever's clever, sign me up, just let me know when I get my money. Anyway, next week, Planet of the Apes, the one that started it all, with Charlton Heston. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. Now you know you got to go. And there it is. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly where that scene is from. If you've seen the trailer, I posted that on Facebook as well. Which the trailer is actually on Funny or Die, which is Will Ferrell's website. So, yeah, good times. It seemed like a good idea at the time. That's the tagline for The Thing with Two Heads. Anyway, next week, Planet of the Apes. Thank you for joining us. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at KD9575. You can follow us on Facebook, the B Movie Club Facebook page, the original B Movie Club. Also on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, KD9575. Thank you for joining us, and be well.